The man flew backwards exactly 16 feet. Not stumbled, not pushed, flew. His feet left the ground completely. His body traveled through the air in a perfect horizontal line. He crashed into a chair that had been placed behind him, and the chair shattered into pieces. The entire demonstration lasted less than 1 second, and the 24 people watching could not believe what they had just seen, because the punch that sent a 170-pound man flying across the room had traveled exactly 1 inch. 1 inch. The distance from Bruce Lee's fist to the man's chest when the punch began was smaller than a matchbox, smaller than a thumb, smaller than anything that should be able to generate that kind of force. But it did. And the people who witnessed it that day would spend the rest of their lives trying to explain what they saw. Most of them failed. This is the true story of the 1-inch punch, the technique that defied physics, the demonstration that created a legend. In the day when 24 witnesses learned that everything they knew about power was wrong. Long Beach, California, August 2nd, 1964. The International Karate Championships. Ed Parker had organized this tournament for 5 years. It was the largest martial arts event in America. Competitors from across the country, masters from different styles, karate, judo, aikido, taekwondo, the best of the best gathered every year to compete, demonstrate, and learn. But this year, Ed Parker had something special planned. He had invited a young martial artist from Hong Kong to give a demonstration, someone most of the audience had never heard of, someone who taught a style called Wing Chun and was developing his own system called Jeet Kune Do. His name was Bruce Lee. He was 23 years old. Ed Parker had met Bruce 6 months earlier at a martial arts gathering in Los Angeles. What he saw that day convinced him that Bruce Lee was unlike anyone else in the martial arts world. Not just his speed, not just his technique, but something else, something harder to define. Bruce Lee moved differently, thought differently. He did not follow the rigid patterns of traditional martial arts. He adapted, he flowed, he improvised, and he could do things that should not be possible. Ed Parker invited Bruce to Long Beach to show the American martial arts community what he could do. It was a risk. Bruce was unknown. He taught a Chinese style to a crowd dominated by Japanese and Korean systems. He was small, 5 foot 7 inches, 140 pounds. He did not look like a martial arts master, but Ed Parker trusted what he had seen. The demonstration was scheduled for 3 p.m. By 2:45, the main hall was packed. Word had spread that something unusual was about to happen. Ed Parker had been talking about this young Chinese instructor for weeks. People were curious. They had no idea what they were about to witness. Bruce Lee walked onto the stage at exactly 3 p.m. He wore a simple black outfit. No ornato uniform. No colored belt. Nothing to indicate rank or system. He looked like someone who had wandered in from the street. The audience murmured. This was the guy Ed Parker had been talking about. He looked like a teenager. Bruce stood center stage and waited for silence. When the room was quiet, he spoke. Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Lee. I am here to demonstrate some principles of Chinese martial arts. Specifically, the concept of explosive power generated from close range. His English was clear but accented. His voice was calm but confident. In traditional karate, he continued, power comes from hip rotation, from chambering the fist, from long-range techniques that build momentum over distance. He demonstrated a traditional karate punch. Full extension. Hip duis. Textbook form. This is effective, Bruce said. But it requires space. It requires time. It requires your opponent to cooperate by standing at the right distance. He paused. What happens when your opponent is too close? What happens when you have no room to chamber? What happens when you have only 1 inch? He held up his hand, thumb and forefinger 1 inch apart. The audience leaned forward. I will demonstrate. Bruce called for a volunteer. A young martial artist named Bob Baker raised his hand. Bob was a student of Ed Parker's. He was 5 foot 11 inches, 170 pounds, 30 pounds heavier than Bruce. A trained fighter who could take a punch. Bob walked onto the stage. Bruce positioned him carefully. Stand here. Feet together. Arms at your sides. Bob complied. Bruce placed his fist against Bob's chest. Not near the chest. Against it. Touching. There was no space between Bruce's knuckles and Bob's body. The audience could see clearly. The punch would have to travel 1 inch. Maybe less. A chair was placed 8 feet behind Bob. A safety measure. Something to stop his backward movement. Bruce looked at the audience. Watch carefully. This will happen very fast. He was not exaggerating. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most important part of this story is still unfolding. What happened next would be analyzed frame by frame for decades. Bruce Lee's fist was touching Bob Baker's chest. Then it was not. In the space of a single heartbeat, Bruce's arm extended. Not a push. Not a shove. A punch. A real punch with real impact. The sound was extraordinary. A sharp crack, like a board breaking, followed immediately by a whoosh of air as Bob Baker's body flew backwards. Flew. His feet left the ground completely. His body traveled in a horizontal line, arms flailing, eyes wide with shock. He sailed past the safety chair, over it, beyond it. He landed 16 feet from where he had been standing. 16 feet. From a punch that traveled 1 inch. The audience sat in stunned silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. For 3 full seconds, the room was frozen. Then the gasps began. The whispers. The sounds of disbelief. How did he do that? What the hell was that? That is not possible. Bob Baker was helped to his feet. He was dazed but uninjured. The chair had broken his fall, though it had also broken itself in the process. Bruce Lee stood calmly on stage, waiting for the reaction to subside. When the room quieted again, he spoke. What you just saw is not magic. It is not a trick. It is physics. He walked to the center of the stage. Traditional punches generate power over distance. The fist travels 12 inches, 18 inches, 24 inches. The body rotates. Momentum builds. The power is spread across the entire movement. He demonstrated again, throwing a long punch in slow motion. But power is not about distance. Power is about acceleration, about generating maximum force in minimum time, about releasing all your energy in a single instant. He held up his fist. This is what the 1-inch punch does. It concentrates all the body's power from the feet, through the legs, through the hips, through the core, through the arm, into a space of 1 inch. Everything fires at once. Every muscle, every fiber, every ounce of energy. He pointed at Bob Baker. He did not fly backwards because I'm stronger than him. He flew backwards because I'm faster. Because I can generate more force in less space than traditional techniques allow. The audience was silent, absorbing this. Bruce continued his demonstration for another 30 minutes. He showed other techniques. His famous kicks. His hand speed tests. His 2-finger push-ups. Each one impressive in its own right. But nothing matched the impact of the 1-inch punch. That single technique, lasting less than 1 second, would define Bruce Lee's reputation for the rest of his life. After the demonstration, Bruce was surrounded by martial artists. They wanted to know how he did it. They wanted to learn. They wanted proof that what they had seen was real. One man, a karate instructor from San Francisco named James Chun, was particularly persistent. I do not believe it, James said flatly. I think the volunteer was cooperating. I think he jumped backwards on purpose to make you look good. Bruce regarded him calmly. You think he was acting? Yes. There's no way a punch that short can generate that much force. It violates basic physics. Bruce nodded thoughtfully. Would you like to test it yourself? James hesitated. He was a 3rd-degree black belt. He had been hit many times in competition. He could handle a punch. Yes, he said. I would. Bruce smiled. That same smile he always gave before a demonstration. The smile that said he knew something you did not. Stand here, Bruce said. James stood with his feet shoulder-width apart. A stable stance. A fighter's stance. He was ready. Bruce placed his fist against James's chest. I will give you the advantage, Bruce said. You can brace yourself. You can tense your muscles. You can prepare for the impact. This man, he gestured at Bob Baker, was standing with his feet together, unprepared. You could be ready. James nodded. He tensed his core, set his stance, prepared for impact. He was not prepared for what happened. The punch landed. James flew backwards. Not as far as Bob Baker. His wider stance and prepared body absorbed some of the force. But he still traveled 11 feet through the air before crashing to the ground. 11 feet from a 1-inch punch. While braced and prepared, James lay on the ground for a moment, staring at the ceiling. Then he started laughing. "What the hell?" he said, still laughing. "What the hell was that?" Bruce offered him a hand up. That, Bruce said, was physics. From that day forward, James Chun became one of Bruce Lee's biggest advocates. He told everyone about the 1-inch punch. He brought students to Bruce's school. He helped spread the legend. And the legend grew. Share and subscribe. Some stories deserve to be remembered. The 1-inch punch became Bruce Lee's signature technique. He demonstrated it hundreds of times over the next 9 years. At tournaments, at private gatherings, on film sets, for celebrities, for skeptics, for anyone who doubted what he could do. Every time, the result was the same. Disbelief followed by conviction. Skepticism followed by awe. But the Long Beach demonstration remained the most famous. Because it was the first. Because it was filmed. Because the footage survived. That footage, grainy and imperfect, has been viewed millions of times. Scientists have analyzed it frame by frame. Martial artists have studied it for decades. Everyone trying to understand how Bruce Lee generated so much force from so little distance. The explanations are technical. Bruce Lee's punch utilized every muscle in his body simultaneously. His feet pushed against the ground. His legs drove upward. His hips rotated. His core stabilized. His shoulder extended. His arms straightened. His wrist aligned. His fist connected. All of this happened in approximately 6/100ths of a second. 6/100ths of a second. The average human eye blink takes 3/10ths of a second. Bruce Lee's 1-inch punch was 5 times faster than a blink. But the technical explanation does not capture what it felt like to be there. To see it happen. To watch a man fly through the air from a punch that should not have worked. Bob Baker, the original volunteer, spoke about it many times over the years. "People ask me if it hurt," he said in a 1985 interview. "That is not the right question. Pain happens when something hits you over time. This did not happen over time. This happened all at once." He paused. It did not feel like being punched. It felt like being hit by a car. Like something massive and unstoppable had transferred all its energy into my body in a single instant. He smiled. "I flew backwards. I did not choose to fly backwards. I did not jump. I did not cooperate. The punch lifted me off the ground and sent me sailing. I could not have stopped it if I tried." Bob Baker went on to become a martial arts instructor himself. He taught for over 40 years. And in every class, he told the story of the day Bruce Lee hit him with a 1-inch punch. "Most of my students do not believe me at first," he admitted. "They think I am exaggerating. Then I show them the footage. Then they believe." The footage from Long Beach was not the only recording of the 1-inch punch. Bruce demonstrated it again on the Pierre Berton show in 1971. He performed it multiple times on the set of Enter the Dragon. He showed it to Muhammad Ali during their famous meeting in 1972. Ali, one of the greatest boxers in history, watched Bruce demonstrate the punch on a training partner. The partner flew backwards into a padded wall. Ali shook his head. "If you hit me with that," he told Bruce, "I'm not getting back up." Bruce laughed. "If I hit you with that, you would not need to get up. The fight would be over." The two men spent 3 hours together that day. Ali left with a profound respect for Bruce Lee's abilities. "That little man," Ali said later, "is something else. I've been hit by the hardest punchers in boxing. I have never felt anything like what he showed me." The science behind the 1-inch punch has been studied extensively since Bruce Lee's death. In 2012, a team of researchers at Stanford University conducted a biomechanical analysis of the technique. They used high-speed cameras, force plates, and motion sensors to measure exactly what happened during a 1-inch punch. Their findings confirmed what Bruce Lee had always claimed. The punch generates force not from arm strength, but from coordinated full-body movement. The practitioner drives from the ground up, using the entire kinetic chain. The force peaks at the moment of impact, creating a spike of energy that transfers directly into the target. The Stanford team measured impacts of over 400 pounds of force from a 1-inch punch, comparable to a professional boxer's full punch delivered from maximum range. Bruce Lee was right, the lead researcher said. He was ahead of his time by decades. He understood biomechanics intuitively that we are only now able to measure scientifically. But the most powerful testimony about the 1-inch punch does not come from scientists. It comes from the people who felt it. Gene LeBell, the legendary grappler and stuntman who worked with Bruce on Enter the Dragon, was one of them. "I've been hit by everyone," LeBell said. Boxers, wrestlers, martial artists, stuntmen who did not know how to pull their punches. "I've been hit hard more times than I can count." He paused. Nothing compared to Bruce's 1-inch punch. Nothing. It did not feel like a punch. It felt like an explosion, like a grenade going off inside your chest. LeBell weighed over 200 pounds. He was one of the toughest men in Hollywood, and Bruce Lee knocked him off his feet from 1 inch away. Joe Louis, the world kickboxing champion who trained with Bruce, had a similar experience. "I thought I was too strong for it," Louis admitted. "I thought my conditioning would protect me. I was wrong." He shook his head. "Bruce put his fist against my chest and told me to brace myself. I set my feet. I tightened my core. I was ready for anything." He smiled. "I was not ready for that." Nobody is ready for that. It is not a punch. It is a phenomenon. The 1-inch punch became more than a technique. It became a symbol, a representation of everything Bruce Lee believed about martial arts. Power is not about size. It is about efficiency. Strength is not about muscles. It is about coordination. Speed is not about movement. It is about timing. Bruce Lee weighed 140 pounds. He could send a 200-pound man flying through the air with a punch that traveled 1 inch. Because he understood something that most martial artists did not. The body is not a collection of parts. It is a unified system. And when every part of that system fires together, in perfect coordination, at the exact same instant, the result is power that defies explanation. The 1-inch punch was not magic. It was mastery. August 2nd, 1964. Long Beach, California. 24 witnesses. 1 inch of distance. 16 feet of flight. In a moment that would be remembered forever. Bruce Lee died 9 years later in 1973. He was 32 years old, but the 1-inch punch lives on. Martial artists around the world still study it. Scientists still analyze it. Millions of people have watched the footage, trying to understand what they are seeing. Most of them fail, because the 1-inch punch is not about understanding. It is about believing. Believing that the impossible is possible. Believing that limits are illusions. Believing that a small man with a big vision can change everything we know about power. Bruce Lee believed, and on August 2nd, 1964, he proved it to 24 people who had never believed in anything like him before. They walked in as skeptics. They walked out as witnesses. And they spent the rest of their lives telling the story of the day they saw a man fly backward from a punch that traveled 1 inch. The day they learned that everything they knew about power was wrong. The day they met Bruce Lee.